My name is Darren Climie-Newman. I'm the Azure commercial lead for TD SYNNEX within our Microsoft European team. So today I'm going to talk through our Microsoft SOC and Managed XDR service offering, go through some details, what the opportunity is, who we've partnered with, and obviously how you can maximize the opportunity that this cyber service can bring to your organization, partnered with ourselves. So if we move into a quick part of the agenda, so I'm just going to talk through, why cybersecurity and what sort of bit about the landscape, some of the challenges in the channel for cybersecurity and how we can try and help mitigate some of that. Why Microsoft for security, right? So, some people may still question today that Microsoft's not a security vendor. What is a SOC? What is the difference between sort of EDR, MDR, and XDR terminology? Why do customers need to improve security postures? Optimizing tools, who our provider is, and then really what's in it for you as a partner of TD SYNNEX. So let's start here. So some internal research from Microsoft suggests that 90% of customers said they would happily switch their IT provider if they were offered a better cybersecurity service or offering or support. Okay, it's a very, very high percentage that customers are, clearly looking for, improved cyber resilience, okay, and cybersecurity, because they know the challenges that brings, and particularly SMB customers don't have the tools, the people, or the resources to deliver that themselves. On top of that, this is a statistic from Gartner that by 2025, 60% of organizations will be actively using remote threat disruption and containment capabilities delivered directly by an MDR provider. Okay, that's up from 30% today. Okay, so that's going to double, and we are at the moment continuously seeing customers in all industries across multiple countries across Europe talking to us about particularly SOC services in particular. And some of that is being driven by even things like cyber insurance companies saying that you need to have monitoring or SOC service in place, otherwise we just won't insure you as a business. So yeah, interesting statistics to start with. Okay, 90% of customers would switch for better security. I'm not going to talk through these details. It's fairly obvious, I think, that the cybersecurity challenge isn't getting any easier. In fact, it's probably getting harder and worse year in, year out. Okay, I've been in the industry for 22 years, and every single year, some of these statistics continue to grow, and it pays, right, for the cyber threat actors and gangs. It does pay for them. It genuinely pays. Again, TD SYNNEX as an indirect provider, along with lots of our customers and other indirect providers globally, in fact, have been involved, unfortunately, in things like Azure fraud instances. So where cloud accounts are being compromised and then leveraged and utilized for cryptocurrency mining, as an example. Because it pays for them. Even if they can just spin up, very quickly 100 virtual machines to cryptocurrency mine across 2 or 3 days of a weekend before it's identified, pays a lot of money. Okay, so it's a big challenge. It's a global issue, and it's impacting organizations of all sizes, and specifically SMBs are becoming more of a target, and we'll come on to some of that reasoning behind that later on. So, as an indirect provider, and as many of our partners like yourselves we work with, we are, sort of fairly heavily weighted towards the SMB segment of the market. Yes, we all have customers in the mid-market, and we may even have some enterprise type customers as well. But largely speaking, SMBs are, the sort of organizations that we typically partner and support. Now, these are some statistics, and the question I put at the top is, SMBs are immune to cyber threats, right? The argument here, or my view, is no, they're not. And as I just mentioned, they're actually becoming more of a risk, more of a target because of various reasons, like they don't have the resources, the tools, the skills, the capabilities to protect themselves in a very fast, rapidly changing market in IT. The perimeter is no longer a perimeter. Okay, the perimeter is the identity of a user effectively now, and it only takes one compromised credential to give someone access to a lot of potential resources. The statistic for me on this slide that I think is of interest is that the bottom one. So 29% of 1/3 of businesses that suffered a breach responded by hiring a cybersecurity firm or dedicated IT staff. Okay, so the organizations that have unfortunately already been breached, their response was 1 in 3 times to go and hire a third-party cybersecurity organization to provide better security going forward. Okay, so that's how they go and fix that problem, so to speak, is to go and find a security services provider that can provide dedicated cybersecurity of their organization. So the challenges for the channel, we all know that there's many reasons why we might say that there's challenges in different areas of IT, but particularly in cybersecurity, the two big ones are skill shortage. We know that cyber skills have been in high demand and unfortunately not enough of it available for quite some time. And then the complexity of IT. It is becoming more and more complex. And actually, as we go through the next 12, 18, 24 months, with things like artificial intelligence for Microsoft, with OpenAI and all the Copilot technology, it's going to become even harder to protect ourselves. And actually, those tools, those AI tools, actually become a threat to us or our customers, because these fantastic technologies that AI and Copilot is going to provide us on the good side, they will be used for unfortunately those the bad actors on the other side of the fence. Okay, so it's going to become an even more challenging scenario that we're going to be faced with. So the question is, do you buy or build services? Okay, do you buy and partner with someone, provide cybersecurity services, or do you build them internally? Particularly SOC services, 24/7 operation. That's a difficult thing to build, and again, some of those reasons are then outlined on here. So building a SOC is, there's a cost impact to that. There's the people impact. There's also the credibility. Okay, are you known in the market for those particular types of services, and actually how quickly you can get it to market. So if we just look at the costs, okay, so a 24/7 SOC operation involves heavy upfront costs. Okay, so if you want to build that internally, you may be looking at even as small as 6 security analysts on an 8-hour rota of 3 8 hours to cover 24. And then a SOC manager, then a couple of engineers, and then maybe a head of cybersecurity. You're talking £500,000 or $600,000-700,000 or euros a year just in people cost for running a 24/7 SOC before you even onboard a customer. And then again, the people. We've just mentioned that there is a cyber skills shortage and has been for a long time. So how do you find those people? They're not. There's not. Too many out there that we can just go and find. So it might be an education, but then it's the retention as well. You may find those people, but then because it's an in-demand market area, they may well be offered opportunities elsewhere, and then it's difficult. How do we retain those people in the business? And then credibility. Are you known for those services and time to market? This issue isn't an issue that you've got time to say, well, we'll start fixing up this issue for our customers in 18 months, 2 years when we're ready. This issue is today. This issue is what customers are facing, and therefore we need to try and help as quickly as we can. So it's, do you build, which is a challenge, or do you partner? So again, why Microsoft for security? Many people, some may even still today, don't see Microsoft as a cybersecurity vendor. I would say that even if you went back maybe even 10 years, which isn't that long, Microsoft probably really wasn't a security vendor. They've put a huge amount of time, effort, and investment into cyber over the last probably decade to become a security vendor, a known security vendor in that particular market segment. So if you're not aware, Microsoft actually is investing $20 billion in cyber R&D over the next 5 years. Okay, and that started about 18 months ago. So they're investing $20 billion just in research and development for cyber alone. Okay, so that $20 billion is probably more in investment in R&D than a lot of cyber vendors turn over in revenue in a year. This is a big bet for Microsoft. This is not Microsoft playing half of the game and doing a bit of cyber. This is full on into this, and it shows, right? The tools they have in the Defender suite, the Sentinel technology, and so forth. It is a compelling proposition, and again, it's something we clearly will be able to support you with, and I'll cover it later on in the session today. But again, if you look at what's the portfolio look like from a cyber perspective for Microsoft? Microsoft's approach is for security is to understand both the breadth and the depth of the entire estate. Okay, the end-to-end offering or end-to-end infrastructure and services that customers are running. Now, that could be anything from that's covered by 365 Defender, so identities, endpoints, apps, email, cloud apps, SaaS apps, etc., to infrastructure through Defender for Cloud. So, SQL databases, storage, server VMs, containers, app services, etc. There are security tooling across the portfolio to cover the vast majority of most organizations' estate. And then all of that can be fed into a cloud native security information and event management platform in Microsoft Sentinel. Okay, so that insight from the data and the security researchers helps customers stay protected in an efficient way, and just make it easier for organizations to see what is at risk, or what are they going to look for, and what is not worth looking at. So one of the biggest challenges for organizations running SIEM technology is alert fatigue. So what alerts do I look at, which alerts don't I look at, and how do I know which are the right ones to look at, which ones can I leave? And that's that is I wouldn't say it's a dark art as such, but you've got to be pretty specialist to really build that in an efficient way. And actually, one of the challenges that a lot of customers have found, particularly with Sentinel, is the cost of running it specifically. So what a lot of customers have done is they may have turned Sentinel on in an Azure subscription, connected every single log source they can and thrown it at it, which you then get charged for log ingestion and retention. Then it becomes really expensive and people turn it off and don't use it again. So there is definitely some work to be done through log optimization. And again, we can support that through our services. Get back to the Microsoft and why them for security. So these are just some statistics, some signals that they analyze on a monthly basis. These are monthly transactional stats. So at the moment, Microsoft are analyzing close to 500 billion emails a month. Okay, 600 billion documents scanned a month, authenticating 600, 700 billion identities a month. Okay, that alone is giving Microsoft probably more visibility as to what's going on out there than probably most cybersecurity vendors in the market. My view would be, if there was one vendor that kind of had access to largely most organizations on the planet, it's going to be Microsoft. Pretty much everyone uses Microsoft somewhere, be it on the desktop, be it on the servers, be it in cloud services. Microsoft are connected to most customers, so therefore they've probably got the best visibility of any cybersecurity vendor in the market. Now, Microsoft are synthesizing 65 trillion signals a day across all types of devices, apps, platforms, and endpoints. Okay, that's nearly 8 times increase on the 8 trillion signals they're doing just 2 years ago. Okay, so a significant amount of data that they are able to analyze, and that is being fed then into their products and services, which helps them protect and prevent threats, right? So that gives more protections to the customer. Okay, so providing them better insights and recommendations. So 65 trillion signals a day is a phenomenal amount of data that they are feeding into their security tooling, which benefits us all. Again, so if we look at those 3 different technology areas, Sentinel, Azure Defender for Cloud, or Microsoft Defender for Cloud, and Microsoft 365 Defender, they drive specifically, for you as a partner, security, Azure consumed revenue, security ACR through Azure Defender, and Sentinel the same, but also the Microsoft 365 stack. Okay, so we can help you drive Defender for Business, specifically to Business Premium as a key hero SKU for SMB, and even up to E5. And E5 can be perceived and seen as a very difficult sell, because E5 can be seen as expensive, but you get a lot in it, and a lot of what's in E5 is security capability. But if you don't know how to operate those tools, stand them up, operate them, and use them, then people don't typically gravitate towards E5. Okay, but we can absolutely, and we have examples, live customer examples already, where we've moved customers up to business premium, and even from business premium to the E5 security set. Okay, so we have got some examples of customers doing that today. So you may have mentioned, or still on the agenda slide, that I put Microsoft down as a visionary. Okay, and what I mean by that is, if we look at the Gartner Magic Quadrants for security information and event management, in February 2020, Microsoft didn't even feature on the SIEM Magic Quadrant for Gartner. Okay, so on the left-hand quadrant, there is no sign of Microsoft in there. Okay. Between 21 and 22, which was actually only 14 months between April and June of the following year, Microsoft propelled themselves to a leader with the best ability to execute in SIEM platforms. Okay, so they've gone from nowhere in 2020 to a leader in 22. Okay, so 2 years in effect, and that's against the likes of IBM, Splunk, Exabeam, vendors, cybersecurity vendors specifically, with SIEM platforms that have been seen as the market leaders for many years. Okay, and even Cisco have now, as we may all know, have just gone and spent $28 billion on acquiring Splunk, because they see that there is a significant opportunity in cyber over the coming years. So it's pretty compelling, but it isn't just SIEM that Microsoft is seen as a leader in. Microsoft is also seen by Gartner as a leader in the likes of access management, cloud access security brokers, endpoint protection platforms, and so forth. In fact, endpoint protection platforms, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, was recently announced as the market share leader for endpoint protection platforms. Okay, and that was announced, I think, 2 or 3 months ago, as well. So if you do a search for that online, you'll find that blog post. But it isn't just Gartner. Okay, it's also Forrester. Okay, so they are a leader in 9 Forrester ways for security. Again, from email security to enterprise detect and response, or EDR, identity, XDR, cloud security gateways, etc. So it isn't just one analyst; it's 2 analysts, and in fact there will be multiple other industry analysts that will be saying similar things. Microsoft is a security vendor. Whether you feel like you've trusted them in the past or not it's a question, but they absolutely are a cyber vendor today and should be seen as that. So, what's a SOC? Security Operations Center. Not going to go into this into any great detail, but it is in effect it's a set of tools, it's people, and it's processes. Okay, so it's those 3 key elements which have multiple layers within each of those pillars, that have a cost associated to them. Again, we talked about this earlier on, that the average in-house cost of people, a small SOC team could be £500,000 a year in salaries, for example. But the provider that we'll talk about shortly that we've worked with have invested multiple millions in building their SOC service, and have done so because of the opportunity that the market is going to give to them. EDR, MDR, XDR, and MXDR, different sort of security acronyms, but just very, very high level. EDR and MDR is typically going to cover your endpoints, your identities, with all that threat intelligence. And then XDR, or managed XDR, extended detect and response, will go beyond that endpoint and the identity to things like IoT or OT devices, mobile network, cloud services, etc., okay, or SaaS apps. So lots of different acronyms in our industry, as we're sure we're all used to, but it's a very high level of what EDR, MDR, and XDR typically means. So why do customers need to improve the security posture? Well, it's fairly obvious. One of the first slides I showed was that it's not getting any better. Okay, they have to improve security because it's becoming more complex, it's becoming more challenging. And again, I mentioned it earlier that we as TD SYNNEX, with some of our partners across Europe, unfortunately, we're involved in Azure fraud cases, purely because they didn't have either the right security policy set up, even things as standard as MFA, multi-factor authentication, not in place, one single set of compromised credentials, and it gives them access to 60 plus data centers globally to spin up resources, which in some cases we saw some fairly significant ones. But looking at some numbers, again, we can all find this online. This is just a Microsoft slide specifically that, security is top of mind for SMB customers, right? There was a 300% increase in ransomware attacks in the past year, with more than 50% of those targeted at small businesses. Okay, so if I sort of come back to why do we think that SMBs are becoming more of a target? It's because, in my opinion, and other people I've spoken to sort of tend to agree, is that if we go back 10, 15 years, for example, the hackers would typically try and affect maybe a large enterprise organization, get a bit of notoriety, whatever it is, maybe drop a bit of ransomware in the last sort of 10 years and see if they can gain some money out of them that way. But doing that to an SMB, wasn't really going to drive much return for those bad actors. But now, with cloud being so prevalent in most organizations, even as simple as doing backup to the cloud, there is a cloud instance or a cloud access to cloud resources somewhere, be that Azure, be AWS or GCP. So with that, what would I want to try, and if I was a bad actor, would I try and infiltrate a Santander bank, a Barclays bank, or a HSBC bank, which probably would either take me a very long time to do, or may even never do? Or do I go after a very small organization that happens to have an Azure subscription that, once I've got access to, gives me access to 60 data center regions to deploy as many virtual machines and cryptocurrency mining, that's going to generate me some income? So for me, it's that there is almost infinite resources available to these actors if they get access to a compromised cloud account. Okay, an SMB that previously didn't use cloud services didn't give them that access. Okay, so that's something we need to remember, that small businesses are an easier target and actually providing greater returns than they used to many years ago. So why do customers need an MDR or XDR service? This was just what happened there? Apologies. This is a slide or a page out of a report I came across a few months ago, which is this one here. Apologies. Motivating factors for the current MDR service engagement. So customers were being asked, you're currently talking to an MDR service provider. What's made you engage in that conversation? Why are you talking to an MDR provider? And some of the responses were interesting. So 41% across all motivating factors were based on that they thought that a managed service provider could do a better job than the customer could do on their own. 37% said that they just lack the security tools and systems needed to perform security operations. And 33% said they just had an immature security program and couldn't afford to wait until they developed something internally. Okay, so they were the reasons why these customers were talking to an MDR provider. They don't have the tools, they don't have the resources, they can't wait any longer. And frankly, a service provider that specializes in security operations will probably do a better job than any organization could do internally, particularly if they don't have the people or the resources or skills. Okay, so interesting to see that is, why these discussions are happening, and that's becoming more and more prevalent. What cybersecurity services are seeing an increase in funding? Okay, so almost everyone except for a few in North America are looking for help at increasing their budgets for security services. The second one, specifically behind some training, was MDR. Okay, so if we look at organizations that are looking to get an increase in funding towards cybersecurity services to better protect themselves going forward, other than security training for their personnel and employees, it's MDR. That's the service that they are looking to invest in going forward. That's ahead of vulnerability assessments, ransomware assessments, pen testing, all great things that you can do to provide some cyber resilience. But actually, it's MDR, it's the key that is giving customers the ability to, potentially, obtain that cyber insurance that I mentioned earlier, but actually be able to sleep better at night. Okay, they know that someone else 24/7 has got them covered. So with all that said, clearly it's a challenge. Clearly there's an opportunity, and a lot of the industry analysts see Microsoft as a very strong cybersecurity player in the market. So partnering with a leading Microsoft security partner is available via us, and I'll talk you through who they are now. So the partner in question is a partner called Chorus. Okay, so who are they? Chorus are a member of the Microsoft Intelligent Security Association. It's an invite-only program from Microsoft, run by Microsoft Corp. And there's only about 400 partners globally in that program. Okay, Microsoft have 400,000 partners globally in their partner program, and only 400 are in the MISA program. Okay, and actually, the MISA members represent the top 0.006% of Microsoft security partners globally. So if you look to all the security partners that Microsoft have in their ecosystem, 0.006% of those are in the MISA program. So it's the very, very, very top tier of security experts. And Chorus was specifically invited because of their MXDR service. Okay, that they built, they invested in, and spent multiple millions building their SOC service. They're advanced specialized in threat protection, identity and access management, information protection, and governance. They've been a partner with Microsoft for 15 plus years, so they know Microsoft extremely well. They're very well connected, and have pivoted towards cybersecurity in the last 3 or 4 years. They have 3 managed SOC services that we can offer, from covering just endpoints. So again, sort of MDR based security. So endpoints and kind of identities through Defender and Sentinel, all the way through to full infrastructure coverage. So covering cloud infrastructure, be that Azure, even AWS or GCP workloads through Defender for Cloud, as well as on-premise workloads. So again, using Defender for Cloud to protect on-prem services. So we see customers moving typically from left to right through those services as they extend their coverage. In terms of their Chorus's cyber security operations stats, their mean time to acknowledge a threat is sub 5 minutes. Their mean time to close is sub 15 minutes, and the industry standard or recommendation is anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour. Okay, so any cyber vendor or provider, or even a customer themselves doing it internally, the 30 minutes to 1 hour mark is the benchmark, if you like, for the mean time to close of a threat or contain a threat more so. And Chorus and our service is sub 15. Okay, so we're well above that, and leading, very much a market leading proposition. 50% of the incidents that are flagged and raised within Sentinel by Chorus or within the service is handled by full automation. Okay, so 50% of incidents that are raised on a customer infrastructure is remediated, contained, or resolved 50% of the time through full automation, and doesn't have any other Chorus analysts involved directly. So no eyes on glass or hands on keyboard. So lots of automation in this to, again, get to those kind of standards and those times to remediate and contain. On top of those statistics, and on top of the fact they're in the MISA program, which is invite only, so not anyone can join it, right? Is that Chorus are also a Microsoft MXDR verified partner within that program. Okay, so that puts Chorus and the service that we're offering in an elite set of Sentinel-based SOC providers services, and there is only 42 of those globally. So just think about those numbers again: 400,000 partners in the Microsoft ecosystem, 400 in the MISA program, 200 of which are actually MSSPs, and the other 200 are ISVs. So it's really only 200. And then of those 200, Chorus are in the top 42, as they are a verified partner, MXDR verified partner status. And what that basically means is that Microsoft have been through the Chorus services, Chorus service, in terms of their operation, their automations, their service offerings, their operation internally, various different things with a fine-tooth comb, and be given the rubber stamp of approval by Microsoft that they are delivering the service based on the Microsoft tooling in the way that Microsoft would do it themselves for the largest of enterprises. Okay, so this is a if you like an enterprise type offering, service offering, SOC offering that we're bringing to the SMB market. Okay, so this is optimizing cybersecurity tools. This has been an, I guess IT optimization has been an ongoing thing for many years. How do we get more value out of what we invest in? So, I've always had a view that when a customer invests in IT technology, they're typically going to use maybe somewhere between 30 to 50, maybe 60% of the product that they paid for, but don't use 20, 30, 40% of it because they may have another tool already doing it. Okay, so they're effectively paying twice for potentially the same technology or product. So this comes from Forrester Consulting, the analyst in September last year, that 64% of SMB buyers are prefer to purchase a software solution or package or suite of solutions that meets their business needs. So they want to buy a product or service or subscription of some type that's going to cover 64%. 64% of them want it to cover all of their needs as best they can. They don't want to buy multiple technologies. So when we look at that from a Microsoft cybersecurity perspective, I don't know what the stats are. I've seen all sorts of stats over the last few years that organizations can be using as many as 20 or 25 cybersecurity products or tools, okay, to keep themselves protected. But if you look at the sort of attack chain that sort of generalized attack chain that attackers would go through, it's that starting on the left and moving to the right. So it's that phishing email, right? We know that 98, 99% of successful breaches start with a successful phishing email, right? So we all get them. We get them, unfortunately, through our corporate email, but we probably more so get a lot more of them through our personal emails. And some of them can be pretty convincing, right? So, when you look at that attack chain, how they'll go through a phishing email, someone will click a URL, they'll open an attachment that will then, drop some payload on the endpoint or give them access to an account that they can then, use to laterally move across an environment left to right, and maybe even be in an environment for 3 to 6 months before they do anything. But if you look at the technologies that Microsoft have in the portfolio, it's Defender for Office will cover you at that front door. So it's that, protecting you on the email and the web, etc. You've got Defender for Endpoint, protecting the endpoint devices. You've even got stuff with Defender for IoT and OT, so disrupting OT environments or protecting IoT infrastructure. You've then got Defender for Identity or Azure cloud identities with Entra ID. Or on-premise ID with Defender for Identity, and then you've got Defender for Cloud Apps, so SaaS applications and cloud applications to stop access to sensitive data or data exfiltration. And that's all of those tools under an E5 subscription or individually, depending on where your customer is at on that journey with Microsoft. But these are, some customers are using multiple vendors to deliver different parts of this, when we can do this all in under one subscription with Microsoft. And the great thing about this is that, these are all Microsoft technologies, and therefore they all work together, okay? And they all integrate natively, and therefore it all feeds natively and nicely into Sentinel, which is that, cloud-based SIEM platform, which now, as we know, is a leader in the Magic Quadrant from Gartner. So that's your, Defender environment, your environment protected by Microsoft Defender for Cloud or Defender for Endpoint or 365 Defender. And then they've also got tools around, insider risk management, okay, that we can explore as well. But typically, when we look at MDR or EDR or MXDR or XDR services, it's that Defender stack and Sentinel, okay? And that's what we can offer through our offering with Chorus today. We have various collaterals that we can provide you. So if you haven't already engaged with your local CSP team within TD SYNNEX, we can provide you with, some collateral around, sales brochures. We've got battle cards. We've got an FAQ document we can share. We can help you, as you can see on the bottom right, help you estimate the Azure consumption because obviously every customer would be a Sentinel customer because it's based on Sentinel and Defender, and how that might look in terms of ACR for the customer on a monthly basis. So plenty of content we can share. So please reach out to your local team and we can provide you that level of detail. As a quick reference, as I mentioned earlier on, we've already got customers already consuming this service, not just in the UK where I currently sit, but obviously across other European regions as well. But we had a partner in the UK that signed multiple deals now through TD SYNNEX and Chorus. Their first deal was for 100 seats, okay, and they started the customer on the entry level MDR for endpoints. Okay, so the customer just wanted to apply 24/7 security service on protecting the endpoints and those identities, okay, using business premium, okay, with very limited Sentinel ingestion, because it was just particularly Defender for endpoint logs into Sentinel. And again, because Sentinel is a Microsoft product and the Defender tools are a Microsoft product, a lot of the logs from the Defender stack that go into Sentinel are not charged. So Sentinel is based on an ingestion per gigs per day, and it's typically free for a lot of the Defender tools. Okay, so it's very limited ACR. Within 4 months of that customer signing up on Business Premium to MDR, they moved to M365 E5. Went to the full XDR Premium service, which then added in all of the Defender for Identity for on-prem AD, Defender for Cloud Apps, and we also did third-party ingestion of logs from Fortinet firewalls, okay, which then increased their ACR as a partner because of the logs from a third-party log source. So we were able to help a partner take a customer from Business Premium to E5 Security and increase their security ACR in one service proposition. Okay, and that's a fairly tricky thing to do, particularly moving customers to E5. We probably all would agree that that's a fairly difficult discussion to have. But because of the service that we have, it's being driven and delivered by the Defender tools and by Sentinel, we can help cover both Azure and modern work opportunity. So where's the customer data? Okay, so I've mentioned that we have this as an offering obviously across our European TD SYNNEX footprint for Microsoft. Chorus are a UK-based SOC provider. They're a CSP partner with TD SYNNEX in the UK. So the question is, where's the data and what gets processed outside of my region? So if you're a partner in France or Germany or Spain or anywhere else other than the UK, what happens to the customer data? Where is it processed? And so on and so forth. So this is how it works. Every customer would deploy an instance of Sentinel, okay, and that Sentinel instance is deployed into the customer's Azure tenant, their subscription with their data, okay, and that doesn't matter what Azure data center region that is. It could be North Europe, West Europe, UK South, UK West, US, Australia, doesn't matter. Okay, that's where the customer Sentinel instance is deployed. Chorus run a managed instance of Sentinel, okay, and then essentially between those two Sentinel instances, they are connected through Azure Lighthouse. Okay, so most of you will probably be aware that Azure Lighthouse is that multi-tenanted management layer or tier above customers that you can peer into their environment to provide management and services. So the two instances between Azure Lighthouse are connected. The only thing that traverses that Lighthouse connection is service metadata. Okay, so service metadata, again, we've got collateral and content or we can share with you on what that actually is, but it will be things like IP address, server name, so on and so forth. It's not raw customer data. Okay, the customer data stays within the customer's Azure subscription in their tenant wherever they've deployed it. Okay, so what we are doing is the Chorus are bringing their SOC analysts, their automations, their playbooks, their threat intelligence, and they operate in your customer's environment. Okay, so nothing moves from your customer's Sentinel instance with their data in their subscription. And because it is their subscription, they still have access to it. So they can see everything that Chorus do in that environment. They can see all the tickets that are raised. They can see when they're closed. They can see what they're actioning, so on and so forth. It's completely visible and transparent. There's no black box. Some SOC or MDR providers do, and in fact, I came across one in Italy, I think it was a few months back, where the other provider that was pitching for the business actually deployed a virtual machine on the customer's infrastructure, but they actually asked the customer to ship their data effectively out to their data center, which effectively then becomes completely uncontrolled. They lose complete visibility of that data. They don't know who's accessing that data, so on and so forth. Okay, so this is great for a customer who maybe has compliance regulation, industry regulation, or data sovereignty requirements. The data needs to stay in their region, location, data center, in their hands effectively. And then on top of that, I guess, if you get to the end of a 1 or 3 year service term on the Chorus service, if the customers decides maybe to go to a different service provider or do it themselves internally, you effectively just disconnect that Azure Lighthouse subscription, Lighthouse connection, and everything goes back to normal. No data has been moved. The data still sits where it is. The customer still has access to all their data and their infrastructure, and we just part companies and go our separate ways. So from that perspective, it's a great way to deliver it. Most Sentinel, if not all Sentinel providers, will deliver it in exactly the same way. And what I can say is I know that this is acceptable to a lot of customers. Maybe not all. Maybe sort of central government, public sector, they may have some concerns with that. But I actually rejoined the TD SYNNEX business last November. I last year worked for an MSSP based in the US. Their SOC was in the US, and they have customers all over Europe delivering the same MDR and XDR services on the Defender and Sentinel stack. And their SOC is in the US, okay, because everything stays in the customer's Azure subscription in their tenant in their region, and they're very happy with that. So go back to the beginning. So remember, 90% of customers said that they would switch IT partners if they were offered better security. Okay, so when we look at the Chorus credentials, you can highlight that they are an MXDR verified partner status within that MISA program. Okay, one of very, very few. The slide's a little bit out of date. It is 42 now, not 36, but even still, you have the opportunity to go to market and sell SOC and MDR and XDR services based on the Defender and Sentinel stack, and compete quite easily, at the top table, if you like, of MDR providers based on Microsoft. I mentioned that every customer is a Sentinel customer. So a Sentinel instance has to be deployed into a customer's Azure subscription, either an existing one or a new one. We have a click-to-run solution where we can help you deploy that Sentinel instance into your customer's environment. Alternatively, as part of the Chorus service, if any of the tools need to be deployed, so they need to deploy Defender for Endpoint or any of the other Defender tools or even Sentinel itself, Chorus will provide those services as part of the onboarding for the customer as well anyway. And then lastly, what's in it for you as a TD SYNNEX partner? So hopefully some of this has come across as providing potentially some significant returns for you. Some of that being increasing your modern work average revenue per user, or your ARPU, or your average revenue per customer, by moving them from either Office 365 to M365, or from business standard or basic to premium as a base Defender for Endpoint SKU, or potentially as far as E3 or even E5. Okay, again, I think I'm going to go as far to say as I think every customer that Chorus has today is on either the MXDR Advanced or Premium service tier, and therefore every single customer they have has got not just Defender for Endpoint, but Defender for Identity, Defender for Cloud Apps, etc. Some have gone to full E5 as well. So we can increase your revenue on your modern work. We can add an additional revenue stream to your managed services. So you can't just build a SOC. You won't build that over the next month or even over the next potentially 6 months. Chorus have spent multiple millions, taken 2 or 3 years to build it, and they've worked extremely hard to gain those statuses with Microsoft, and you now have the option to take that same service capability to market as early as next week. Okay, it's kind of that simple. More loyal customers. Okay, so the more services that we or you provide, the harder it is for a customer to move for the same value stack. Okay, so customer loyalty. The example I always seem to come up with is the Amazon example. So for me, I'm an Amazon Prime customer, as I'm sure maybe many of you are, and that gives me Amazon Music, it gives me Amazon Video, it gives me Amazon Photo Storage, etc., etc. It gives me next day delivery. So many things. And for me to get that for the price I pay is extremely good value. But if I wanted to get the same services and try and get that cheaper elsewhere, I'd probably struggle. And I certainly probably wouldn't get it from one provider, because I'd have to go to multiple providers to get the different services. Maybe have to go to Netflix for video and go to Google for cloud storage or something else. So the more you can provide to the customer, the harder it is potentially for them to later leave or move on. And then lastly, add Azure security services via Sentinel and Defender for Cloud. More ACR for you as you move from MDR to XDR services with Chorus. So you're ingesting more to Sentinel. So we can help you drive modern work, upsell. We can help you drive Azure ACR. We can help you drive Azure security specifically, and hopefully add more services to your portfolio for your particular customer set. So hopefully that's been a useful 50 minutes. I thank you all for joining me today. Again, if you want any more information, please contact your local TD SYNNEX CSP team. This is available through our TD SYNNEX services division to all countries in Europe. And as I said, we have customers today. We can maybe go into a deep dive session with you in more detail. We can engage you with Chorus. So if you want to have a conversation with them directly, we can do that too. But what we want to do is help you protect your customers, provide them security services that ultimately 60% of organizations, as I mentioned, will be looking for an MDR service in the next probably 2 years. So with that, I thank you very much for joining me this afternoon, and you have a great afternoon. Thanks very much.